in the NICU, and tonight we have with us Penny. And Penny had a child in the NICU unit in March of 2012. Penny, would you care to tell us how you ended up in the NICU unit?
Sure. I was pregnant with my son Nate, and at the 20-week ultrasound, everything was fine. And at 28 weeks, I went in for routine growth ultrasound because I had gestational diabetes, and they found out he had fluid in his chest cavity. And from there, um, I guess 4 weeks later, he was born on March 7th, 2012, and he went straight to the NICU from the delivery room.
What did they say caused the fluid in his actual lungs?
What wasn't in his lungs, it was in the chest cavity. So not like pneumonia, but just outside the lungs, but still in the pleural cavity. And they don't know. That will remain a mystery.
Uh, can you tell us a little bit about your little one while he was in the NICU? Any kind of personality traits or any kind of funny stories that you have? Or fun stories,
Uh,
period.
um, he was absolutely full of personality. I have to say that, when I found out he was going to be delivered, and even though I have a child, when, I expected, I guess, kind of more of an old, like just not like skin and bones is what I expected to have. I was really surprised in the delivery room. And then when he got to the NICU, I mean, immediately his eyes were so big, and he was very proportional, just, a little bitty baby. Um, he would respond to voices. When I would go in and sit with him when we were there, his primary nurse was from upstate New York, and when I could hear her voice coming like towards us, his eyes would open really big, and he would get, just start looking around because he knew her voice. And they tell me that he did the same thing when I would come in the unit if I talked before I got there.
Okay, that's like a big deal. I know that when my son was in the NICU unit, he responded to me and Julian, but he didn't respond to others. So that's a huge deal that Nate actually responded to other people's voices. And so,
Yeah, I thought so too. There's several, my daughter Allison went to visit him twice a week, and she would take huge stacks of books um, to read to him. And she was 7 then, and there were times, and I have a couple of pictures, that it looks like he is just looking at her, just like listening with everything that he has. Call it coincidence, but I think he was listening to
he probably was. How
it.
did Allison handle him being in the NICU unit? Well, how was that for her? And how was that as far as seeing her brother in that situation?
Well, since we pretty much knew before he was born that he was going to go to the NICU, we were able to prep her and tell her what was going to happen. And then the NICU staff was really good. Like the first time that Allison came in to see Nate, they covered up a lot of the tubes and things like that. So there were some things that were, I mean, not hidden, but just not like right in your face. So she handled it really well.
How did you handle, or what would you describe as one of your lower moments while you were in the NICU? One of your sadder moments, not so pleasant moments while being in the NICU unit?
Well, the, I mean, there were several. I mean, obviously, the very end was the lowest possible place to be, but um, along that journey, when Nate was a week old, um, I still couldn't drive from my C-section, and so I had a friend take and drop me off at the hospital so I could see him because, as I called every morning, he had been taken off of the ventilator and put on a CPAP. So I was really excited. And, I went and called, picked up the phone and said who I was there to see. And she said, come on back. Well, then from the time it took me to walk through the doors to the desk, she was like, wait a minute, you can't go back. They're doing something. And it was interesting because I don't know, there was so much emotion built up because, I want to get back there. I want to see him. And what do you mean, like in the 30 seconds it took me to walk from here to there, now they're doing something? So I had to go back out to the NICU waiting room and wait. And there's what they call a book of hope out there. And I knew that things with Nate, things may not go well. They may not turn out like I would have hoped. But as I was waiting, I looked through this book, and I decided that day that no matter what the outcome, I was gonna, enjoy each day that I had with him and have hope and have dreams, and just like you would for any baby that you brought home when you were supposed to.
I actually like the way you said that. I'm gonna actually, you said two things. You said the Book of Hope, and you talked about the fact that the NICU staff was great for you.
Hmm.
What did you lean on the most of the time while you were there? Was it people, or was it a saying or a scripture, or what gave you strength while you were in the NICU?
Um, I mean, I will have to say my relationship with God was at the front. But along with that was, you know, there were several people who were taking care of, our basic needs as a family. People brought food, that, so I didn't have that to worry about. So it really did free me to focus on Nate. But the first day, I guess the Tuesday, before this Wednesday I'm talking about, I went in and talked to his primary nurse, and you know, people from the north sometimes are not all touchy feely like we are in the south, and you know, I, I like to talk to everybody, and so I introduced myself, and she had actually met me when I was in the hospital from the C-section, but I don't remember much of that. Um, but the first thing she said to me was, "Don't ask me any question that you don't want to know the truth to." And I remember thinking, wow, that's kind of harsh. And that actually was like the best thing ever, because I knew that I could look to her. She was going to tell me the truth. Not necessarily in a mean way or harsh, but just direct.
Yeah.
So, those were some of the things.
Any kind of song? You said that your relationship with God. Any songs or anything, or any sayings that you would like to share with parents on that?
We were actually beginning that January. I was in a Bible study group for women at Brookwood Church, and it's called WOW. And I always thought it meant Women on Wednesday because that fit, but actually it means Women of the Word.
Hmm.
Um, and they'd started a Beth Moore study. Well, and it's kind of funny being in school now because I don't like homework. I don't like to have to do extra things. And if you've ever done a Beth Moore Bible study, there's a ton of homework.
Of extra stuff. Yes.
And so they were doing the Book of James, and I've never liked the Book of James because right off it tells you, to choose joy no matter your circumstances, which is the penny paraphrase version. But so we're studying that. So, I'm going through it and I'm getting a lot out of it. And that day in the doctor's office where they told me that something was wrong with Nate, the doctor had to go back out for a minute and I was by myself. And I started praying, and I'm thinking, okay, God's going to send me like one of those nice psalm verses that are just really comforting and that kind of thing. And it wasn't that. It was James 1:2 that kept coming back to me. Choose joy. No matter what, you choose joy. And that kept me going while I was in there, but I didn't really realize the full meaning of that until after Nate died.
Yeah.
The other thing was this song that was popular then called Revelation Song by Phillips, Craig, and Dean. And for some reason, it would play through my mind most of the time when I was in there. So that's what I sang to him most of the time.
Yeah. That's actually very powerful, Penny. That's very, very powerful. I know from our time that we've talked that you are still choosing joy, and it's evident in the walk that you're showing. Do you have one or two final points that you would like to give as a parent-to-parent tip for parents who may have a child in the NICU, or to parents who may have lost a child through their NICU journey?
I would say to parents that have a baby in the NICU now, take like pictures the entire time you were there because you never know what's going to happen. I remember thinking, wow, I've got a lot of pictures of Nate. And now over 2 years later, I'm like, really, I don't. And there was some days I went and I didn't take pictures, and I wish I would have. For those parents who may have lost a child in the NICU, first of all, your journey is yours. Don't let people tell you when it's time to be done or when it's time to start talking about your child. You have to do it the way that you're comfortable with. I think that has been my biggest thing, is figuring out what way works best for me, no matter what other people say, even people that I'm close to. And that's been very hard, but very freeing at the same time.
Well, those are my final thoughts. Penny, I would like to say thank you for joining us tonight and thank you for sharing your story and
Absolutely.
look forward to next time. And
All
that is
right.
all for us. I'm actually going to stop the broadcast at the moment.